actually the vessel which contains everything. And the higher Sfirot, which are Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, are actually the 3 matzot. All right? So we have an arrangement where we have Keter, Chochmah, Bina, the 3 matzot, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. We have the full complement of the 10 Sfirot there on the Seder table. All right? Now, what does it tell you here? And I've got, I think, another picture here. Yeah. So the Ari, move that way over there so it's not bothering. Okay. The Ari actually arranged his Seder table with the matzot underneath. Okay. Keter, Chochmah, Bina. And here we have the Malchut, which is the plate itself. And then we've got Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. This one is not so much in the same order. Okay? So why is that the name of God? We've said Sfirot, the most subtle aspect, which are inside the soul. How come, what's that relationship with God? In actual fact, if I go to stop share for a moment and I go to the chat, okay, what I'm going to show you is Yud equals Keter, Hey, and sorry, I beg your pardon, Yud is also Chochmah. Oh, I did it in gibberish, sorry, try again. Yud equals Chochmah. I'll tell you why it's both in a moment. Sorry if you can't read Hebrew, but we'll translate in a moment. Yeah. Hey, Yud, Hey is Bina. There you go. Vav is Tiferet, which includes everything on the plate. And the last Hey is Malchut. All right. Now, Keter, sorry about that mess in the middle. Keter is just a little chupchik on top of the Yud. It's just a little bit sticking up to heaven, is that part of the Yud. And Chochmah is the actual Yud itself. And you have Hey, Vav, Hey. So Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The 4-letter name of God is actually represented on the Seder table by everything on the Ka'ara and the 3 matzahs as well. When I first heard this, blew me away completely. I mean, I really was blown away by this. I had no idea. We put out these symbols, okay, and we all learn the historical meanings that I'm going to go back to my share again, which is, I've lost it. Oh, there it is, right. It won't share. Oh, there we go. Right. Okay. So, you know, the historical aspect is that the Zroah stands for God's outstretched arm, and the egg is for the korban, the sacrifice of the Pesach. But I want to look for a minute at maror. Maror fascinated me, the bitter herbs. Okay. Why is that so fascinating? Why are they in the middle line? Why are they Tiferet? Tiferet is loving kindness. Tiferet is rachamim. Tiferet is compassion. Why is the bitter herbs right in the middle? And if you look here, you've got the bitter herbs, which is the main bitter herbs that we eat in the first time we eat them. And then the second lot of bitter herbs is when we make it as a sandwich, Cohen. So why are they right in that middle line? Okay, which is the line of compassion. So the answer is fascinating. if you remember, the children of Israel were in Egypt serving the Egyptians for at least 210 years, okay? That's what Rashi says. They were there for 210 years. But the truth of the matter is that they did not find the servitude to be bitter to start off with. They were very happy. They integrated, they assimilated, they became idol worshippers, in fact. They actually became very similar to the Egyptians, not quite, but they actually went down to the 49th level of uncleanness, which meant they were pretty assimilated. And so it was when they woke up to the bitterness of the exile, to the bitterness of serving the Egyptians, that was the compassion. And so the fact is, it was God who woke them up. Okay, so God's compassion is when they saw the bitterness of their exile. Now, one of the things that we learn on Seder night, probably the most important sentence for the whole of Seder night, is "B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam liot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim." In every single generation, a person needs to see himself as if he is coming out of Egypt. And the coming out of Egypt is one of the most central aspects of the whole of Judaism. In the language of Kabbalah, Egypt is actually not a historical country where we once were. Egypt is a part of ourselves. Egypt is the Meitzarim, our narrow places, our places where we absolutely don't allow God in, where we become enslaved to our ego, what Rabbi Asher calls our will to receive only for ourselves alone. We become very tight, very narrow. Meitzarim means sort of narrow place, okay? So we become enslaved to a type of thinking, like I need this, I have to have that, I can't manage without, and that type of thing, all right? And we think that's normal. We think that's a normal way to behave. We think it's a normal way to live. And it's when God actually shows us the bitterness of living like that. That's actually his compassion. Now, I was listening to a shiur by Rabbi Gottlieb, who's one of the most incredible teachers of the Kabbalah in Israel today. And he said, this is one of the things of coronavirus, that it's here to show us the bitterness of a particular way of materialism that we've all got stuck in. That the world has gone in a very materialistic direction. And now suddenly it's all had to shut down. We can't go to the pubs, we can't go to the cafes, we can't go to the restaurants, we can't fly to different countries. A lot of economies had to shut down. We have to learn a new way. And it's a way of God opening our eyes to say, get free, get free. See the bitterness of getting yourselves enslaved to a materialistic way of life. So the compassion is seeing the bitterness. And that is why the maror, the bitter herbs, is right there in the center in the line of compassion. Okay? Right, so we're going to stop share and just go for the chat and ask if that's okay with everybody, or anybody got any questions or anything like that. Or you want to make a comment, whatever. Everybody okay there? Right. So we're going to now.
I had no idea about any of this.
Do you know something, Lauren? I didn't have any idea of any of this for years. Okay, this has been all new to me as well. Yeah. I love when you connect things to Corona. Oh dear, yeah, I know. But it's what's happening. It's now. It's our coming out of Egypt now. Okay. coming out of Egypt is not something that we just learn once a year. In fact, it's something that we mention in our prayers every single day because it is so important. The idea that we can leave our ego, we can or transform it, get out of our stuck places, all right, and actually have redemption every single day is so important. And that's why it says in the Haggadah, Ani velo malach, ani velo shaliach, ani hu velo acher. It's God himself. I am not an angel. I not a messenger. I myself brings us out. So we have to know that when we have something like coronavirus, something which is hitting everybody, it's not because God has disappeared. It's because God is very present. In the Song of Songs, God is likened to a tzvi, to an ofer. It's a type of gazelle. Okay. Now, one of the characteristics of the gazelle or the hind is that as she runs forward, she looks back. Okay. So it's like God is always looking to us, always looking back at us. So it's not that he's gone off somewhere. It's the contrary. It's his compassion that is bringing something to us to help us get out and into redemption. Great. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to go back to, oh no, I got to the wrong thing now. Oops. Sorry. I'm going to go back to share. Right. That's okay. And I do share here. Okay, great. Now we're going to look at Kiddush. Okay. The 4 cups of wine. Do you like my Kiddush cup? That's, I found that on Google. All right. Now, one of the most important mitzvot of Leil Seder is the 4 cups of wine. And as you know, every single person, I'll read this, it's from the Gemara. It's actually from the Jerusalem Gemara, the Yerushalmi Talmud, okay? And this is what it says there. On the evening of Pesach, close to in the afternoon, a person should not eat until it gets dark. Even the poorest of the people of Israel should not eat until he sits down to Seder night. And he must not have any less than 4 cups of wine, even if these come to him from the community chest, from the support from the community. Why do we have 4 cups? Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Benaiah, these are for the 4 expressions of redemption. Okay? And here they actually have it in the Hebrew. It's for these 4 expressions of redemption, which come from Exodus. And this is what they says. And Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Ata tireh she'etzeh leFaro, you will see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. Now again, Pharaoh is not somebody outside, somebody in history. Pharaoh is the aspect of ourselves which denies God. Because what does Pharaoh say? Mi Hashem isheshma lekolo. Who is God that I should listen to his voice? Now, everybody, if we listen to it, we can find that inside ourselves. Okay? And it's God helping us become, 1, aware of it, and 2, helping us deal with it. Okay? So the whole story of the coming out of Egypt is to do with ourselves, to find that Pharaoh within us. Okay? So, look and see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh. Ki biyad chazaka yishalchem, for with a strong hand he will send them away. Ubiyad chazaka yigashem mi'artzo, and with his strong hand he will drive them out from his land. Okay? Now, the word land here is actually meaning our desire. All right? Because we need to focus our desire on coming to God and listening to his voice and not listening to the Pharaoh inside of us. So how can we do it? We need redemption. We need help. We need deliverance. And this is what happened. V'daber Elohim el Moshe, God spoke to Moses. V'yomer elav ani yud hei vav hei. Okay? the same name of God that we saw in the Seder plate. I am Yud Hey Vov Hey. Ve'era el Avraham el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov be'el Shaddai. And I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob with the name of El Shaddai. Ushmi Yud Hey Vov Hey lo nodati lehem. But my name, Yud Hey Vov Hey, which is actually the name of compassion, I didn't tell them. V'gam hakimoti et briti itam. And I will establish my covenant with them. I take them at Eretz Canaan, to give them the land of Canaan, at Eretz Megurehem, the land of their sojournings, Asher Garuba, which they sojourned in. V'gam ani shamati na'akat b'nei Israel, and I have heard the cry of the children of Israel. Asher mitzrayim avidim otam. Now, we've said that Egypt is inside of us. We've said we've got Pharaoh inside of us, but we've also got Israel inside of us. Anybody know who Israel inside of us is? Yashar El. It's the soul. Our soul is inside of us. Yeah. And that's what's being oppressed by our ego. That's what's being oppressed by our Pharaoh, by our Egypt. And so it's crying out to God. And what happens? And God heard the cry of the children of Israel. Hashem mitzrayim avidim otam. The Egyptians are enslaving them. V'ezkor breti, and I will remember my covenant. Lachen emor livnei Israel, and therefore say to the children of Israel, Ani Yud Hey Vav Hey. I am Yud Hey Vav Hey. V'otzeiti etchem mitahat sivlot Mitzrayim. And this is the first aspect of deliverance. I will take you out from under the burden of the Egyptians. V'itzalti etchem me'avodatam. I will deliver you from their service. V'ga'alti etchem b'zror netuyah. And I will redeem you with outstretched arm, ubishvatim gdolim, and with tremendous judgments. V'lakachti etchem li la'am. And I will take you to me for a people. Vayiti lachem le'elohim, and I will be for you for a God. So what do we see here? We see a progression of deliverance. First, God lifts us out of under the burdens of the Egyptian, that we're no longer bowed down by the burden of the ego, which is weighing down on us. I will deliver you from serving the ego. I will redeem you, open us up to something new, open us up to a new paradigm, open us up to a new way of seeing things, okay? And I will take you to me to be for a people. You will be my people, and I will be your God. Isn't that amazing? So, for this 4 levels of redemption, we drink the 4 cups of wine. And now we're going to look at that whole idea from the Zohar. Okay, so this is the piece we're going to look at now. One moment. I'm going to zoom right in there. Okay. All right. Amar Rabbi Yossi. Amar Rabbi Yossi. This is from the Zohar Parshat Emor. These 4 cups which we drink on this night, why? So that was what Rabbi Yossi said. He's asking the question, why do we drink these 4 cups on this night? Rabbi Abba said, the companions, which are the sages of the Talmud, have already established that they are for the 4 expressions of redemption that we just looked at. And I will bring you out, and I will deliver you, and I will redeem you, and I will take you for a people. But the very beautiful is the explanation that we find in the book of Rabbi Yosef Saba. It's something in the Zohar. I don't know what it is. I don't know what book that is. And what does Rabbi Yosef Saba say? He said that since the Zivug, the holy light, comes in on this night, and it comes from every aspect, both the light that God gives to us and the love that we give back to God. And this zivug, the word zivug means the union of opposites, comes in 4 levels, which are never separated from each other when this light is to be found. And here again, we have the 4 main sfirot, which are Chochmah and Bina, Tiferet and Malchut, which include actually all 10. And because they stand for Yud, Hey, Vov, Hey, the 4-letter name of God again. All right? Chochmah, we said, was Yud. Bina, we said, was Hey. Tiferet, we said, was Vav. And Malchut, we said, was Hey. So what do we have here? We have Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. All 4 aspects of the name of God are found through time, through the Seder, as we drink the 4 cups of wine. Okay? Each one is for a different level of redemption, going from the lowest to the highest. And we finally complete the 4-letter name of God with the 4th cup of wine. So here we have that through the 4 cups of wine, we have the name of God in time throughout the Seder. So with the Seder plate and the matzahs, we have it in space. The name of God, we have it in time. So we're actually connecting with God in a very profound way as we drink our 4 cups. And we awaken with their joy. And we drink the 4 cups because we merited to them. Or we were privileged to have them. And whoever is involved with this, that is, in this illumination of this great light, merits to all 4 levels, Chochmah and Bina, Tiferet and Malchut, which actually is the 4-letter name of God, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And this is the reason why this night is different from all other nights. Because God's name is so present, and we need to make and unite the name in all, and to rejoice on this night, because it is joy both above and below. All right? Okay. Now, when we're about to drink the first cup of wine, which of course is the Kiddush, that's the first thing we do on Leila Seder, we make a affirmation beforehand. We make an intention beforehand. And we actually, there's a formula for this, but if you don't know the formula, you can just make it up yourself. All right? And it says, here am I ready and prepared to fulfill the mitzvah of drinking the first of the 4 cups of wine, for the sake of the unification of the Holy Blessed One and his divine presence. So what does that mean? The Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Kudsha Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed One, is God as we perceive him, as coming from above, as bestowing to us all his goodness. And the Shekhinah is the indwelling aspect of God, which is this aspect of God within every single human being on the planet, okay? Which is the soul within everybody. It's the collective soul, okay, is the divine dwelling place. So what are we going to do? We're going to drink our 4 cups of wine for the unification of the Kodesh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah. And how can we do that? With our intention, okay? By intending that our drinking of our 4 cups of wine is in order to bring God's presence into the world, okay? So that's our intention, because he is hidden, and we're going to do it in the name of all Israel. And then it gives you a quotation from the Psalms, and may the pleasantness of the Lord our God be upon us, and the work of our hands be established for us, and may he establish the work of our hands. So the main aspect that we're looking at in our intention in drinking the cups of wine is in actuality to unite this great light, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is pouring into the world, with the soul of every single person in the planet. Okay? So this is this is fascinating, because it means we're not holding Leila Seder just for us personally. We're holding Leila Seder for everybody. Okay? All right. So let me just stop sharing a moment and just ask if there's any questions. Maya's had to zoom off. All right, that's a hand clap there. That's really nice. Okay, so anybody got questions? Anybody with anything?
I'm kind of curious as to why it's not more talked about.
I think it's going to be more talked about. I think this is like, you'll find that most people don't know this.
Yeah.
It's in the Zohar, but how many people know Zohar? Not very many yet. I mean, it's going to be more and more and more out there. This is the new reality. This is the new paradigm. You're on the forefront, love.
I think that you're totally right, because my whole life, I've never seen a Seder plate with the area for the matzot underneath. And just in the last month or two, my mom at a thrift store found one. And I was looking at it and I was like, that's so odd. I've never seen a space for the matzah underneath it. But yeah, it just came into our lives. It's on our table. And then you had this whole talk about it. So interesting.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. That's really amazing. Okay.
I do have one question about the shank bone. I don't want to use a chicken bone. What can I use that's not meat? A beetroot?
Beetroot, yeah. I looked it up once in the Gemara, and there were other vegetarian rabbis in the Talmud, and they also didn't want to use shank bone, so you can use a beetroot.
Okay, cool. That's so good to know. Thank you. I was just
yes, so it's okay. So yes, there have been other vegetarian rabbis through history who have not particularly wanted a shank bone. So you're okay.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I was like, oh no, am I gonna have an incomplete Seder for the rest of my life? Like, I was like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, well, yeah, my father also didn't want a shank bone on the table. My husband didn't want, so I'm quite used to that question, so that's okay. Beetroot is fine.
Shoot for the egg?
Huh? What about the egg? Nobody ever asked me that one about the egg before, but if you're absolutely vegan, I would suggest that you choose something which is round. The idea of the egg is that it's round.
I was thinking a walnut shell, because it also is like, it's closed and something is like limited and like confined.
A walnut would work, I suppose. Yeah. Anything that's completely round, an apple, an orange.
Cool.
Okay.
But an egg isn't round.
Sorry?
An egg isn't round.
It's not round, that's true, it's a bit oval. Yeah, I didn't think of that. But the idea is that it's smooth and it doesn't have any I would use I would say an orange. Yeah. I think we need to understand that it's the
Ooh.
Yeah.
Kelsey found a really good website.
Oh, what does he put there?
This website says that if you view the hard-boiled egg as a symbol of fertility and renewal, then a flower or other symbol of spring can be used as a substitute. And some people interpret it as a symbol of temple sacrifices, in which case a mushroom can be a suitable substitute.
Oh my gosh. A
mushroom. Mushroom.
It says a third interpretation views the Beitzah as a symbol of mourning for the destruction of the first and second temples, which makes finding a meaningful animal-free substitution less obvious. So that didn't get an answer, but yeah, it said a flower or a mushroom, interestingly enough.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the most important thing is actually the idea, okay? And then, just you'll figure out for yourself what substitute you want to use. All right, that's great. That's fine. Now then, I need to keep moving on because I've got a lot to do today. Right, so we've looked at the Seder plate, we've looked at the 4 cups, and do you like my picture? That is going to be a really, really beautiful. The next thing we're going to learn is telling the story. Okay, telling the story is the most important mitzvah that we do on Seder night. We actually tell the story. That's what the Haggadah is about. Haggadah means telling. Okay, and we're going to learn another piece from the Zohar, which talks about telling the story. Okay. All right. I'm going to wait a minute, view, zoom in. Is that too big? Too big. I should zoom out again. That's better. All right, everybody can read that okay? If you can't read it, I'm just going to translate anyhow. Let's move that away, out the way. There we go. Now then, this mitzvah is to tell with praise the coming out of Egypt, because it is an obligation for every person. Now, the words here, Adam, does not mean a male man, okay? It says the word Adam. It means the human being who wants to become close to God. Adameh le'elyon, I want to be like God. Just as God is loving and giving and compassionate, so the human being needs to want to be loving and giving and compassionate. So the word Adam does not in fact mean man, as it's often translated, okay? It actually means the human being who wants to be like God, who's striving to become closer to God. So it's an obligation for everybody who wants to become close to God to tell the praise of coming out of Egypt. Now, again, we looked at what does coming out of Egypt mean? It means letting go of what is constricting us, letting go of what's hurting us, letting go of the narrow places, our narrow outlook that we've somehow got ourselves stuck in, okay? And so we need to, obligation to tell always the story of these praises. And so we have established that every Adam who tells about the coming out of Egypt and is happy in that story, in the future will be happy rejoice with the Shekhinah in the world to come, which is joy on every side. And this is Adam who is happy with his master, and the Holy Blessed One is happy in his story. So he's telling the story, he's happy to tell the story, and in future he's going to rejoice with the Shekhinah in the world to come. Now, what is the world to come? Does that mean only after we die? No. The world to come is here in this world when we change our mindset and we become our mindset, our economy, our way of doing things. Instead of being based on our ego, will be based on how we can help each other. When it will be based on Ezra Hadadit, will be based on helping each other, okay? That is what the world needs to come to, because just as God is giving, we also need to be giving. And this is the new paradigm that we're heading towards. And coronavirus is just the way that God's helping us get there. All right? I'm not in any way diminishing the suffering of people who are sick with it. And my heart goes out, really does. But at the same time, we have to know that God's love is with us in all things. And it's somehow or other, this is what needs to happen so that we can come to the Olam Haba, the next world, but here in this world. okay? The new paradigm, the new way that we will be released from the confines of this very egocentric society. Okay, Baba Sha'ah, at that moment when we're telling the story, the Holy Blessed One gathers all his heavenly court. And he says to them, come and listen to the story of my praise that my children are telling and how happy they are in my redemption. And then all of them gather together. Okay? Now, you can imagine the angels. You can imagine our loved ones who've gone ahead. My husband, my father, all the heavenly aspects are going to come and listen to my story. They all come and they join with Israel and they listen to the story of the praise with which we are happy in the joy of the redemption which God is giving us. And they come and thank the Holy Blessed One for all these miracles and mighty acts, and thank him for the holy people which he has in Israel. But the Aretz here does not just mean only people living in Israel right now. It means people with the desire. Eretz is the desire, the land, which it means the desire, or the desire to come to God. Eretz Israel means the desire of coming to this Yashar El, straight to God. And so are happy in the joy of their redemption of their master. Okay? So when we tell the story, all the angels, all the heavenly court is going to come, God himself is going to come and listen to our story. Now, we said before we have all these elements inside of us. We also have of Egypt, of Pharaoh, but we also have higher elements. The higher elements within us are also God's heavenly court. Okay, the very pure aspects of our soul are going to come and listen to the story. The angels within us. Okay, a human being is like an entire world. And all these different aspects which are mentioned here are aspects within us too. So our more subtle aspects, our more pure aspects are going to come and listen to the story and rejoice with the redemption, rejoice with the redemption that God gives us. Okay? And then strength and might is given and added above. And Israel, in their story, gives power to their master, like the king who is added to him power and might when we praise his might and give thanks to him. And all have reverence for him, and his glory goes up over all of them. And because of this, we need to praise and tell this story as we have learnt. And so therefore, it is an obligation for the Adam, for the human being who wants to get close to God, to always tell before the Holy Blessed One and publicize the miracle for all the miracles that he has done. So what is this about? It means that the more we thank God, the more we pay attention for when God helps us release from a bit of our ego, we need to pay attention to that. It didn't just happen stum. It didn't just happen on its own. It's because he helped us. And you get these positive circles, all right, which go around and increase each other, increase as you go around. That's what it's like. The more we pay attention, the more we give thanks, the more we say thank you, the more we notice it and like, enlarge it in our experience, the more we are drawn to it, the more we make use of it, the more we acknowledge it within ourselves. And that's why it's important for us to look at the coming out of Egypt as a daily occurrence, okay? Because the more we pay attention to how God releases us from our ego, the more chance we have of being released from the next bit of ego, if you see what I mean. It's like a snowball which simply gathers momentum the more attention we pay to it. And if you were to say, why is it an obligation to tell the miracles? Surely the Holy Blessed One knows everything that there was and what will be afterwards. Why do we need to publicize this when surely whatever he's done, he already knows? And we answer, because of course it is of complete necessity for the human being to publicize the miracle and to tell before him everything that he's done, because these words go up. Now these words going up, again, it's not a physical going up, it's our words of giving. Like when we say thank you to God and we acknowledge him, then we're giving to him and we're giving, okay? And giving means that we're in affinity of form. We're showing our faith. We're showing our gratitude. We're putting our trust there, okay? And these are the words that go up. And all the heavenly court gather together. That's the most subtle aspects of our souls. They gather together and they see these words and give thanks before the Holy Blessed One. And his glory goes up over them, both over everybody, over the words, both above and below. Okay? So far, so good? Let's just look and see if there's any more comments. I just read that about Adam in your book. Right. Okay. What you said about paying attention and showing gratitude for Hashem's blessings was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay, right. Now then, let's go back to share. Anybody else want to say anything? You okay there?
So just noting, when we gather together, or in the point where we tell the story of leaving Egypt, of redemption, okay, so what's happening above is that Hashem and all his heavenly courts are gathered together, and below, it's within us. All of the aspects of ourselves and our souls are there to listen to what story we have to tell.
Yeah, it's both. It's like you can imagine it as the heavenly court is coming and listening. And you can also imagine that inside your soul, the heavenly court is represented there as well. It's both. Okay, because everything that's out there is also in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, lovely. Anybody else got a question? Yeah, Alison. How do we get you to hear what you're saying? One moment. I can't hear anything. Can you say it? Don't know how to, I don't know. It says, Akiva, can you unmute Alison? We can't hear her. Oh, write it down then. Write it on the chat.
So
you know how to do the chat? It's at the bottom.
She can message to you, Yedidah, and you can read it, but right now she can't message to everybody. It might not be able to.
You can, where it says,
She can.
hi, right. Yes, you can. Okay. We got you say hi. Okay. Can you write your question? Good. Yeah, write it. Yeah. Where's the source of what goes on the Seder plate? That's actually in the Gemara, in the Talmud. The sages of the Talmud. Now, what's the actual source? Like, the sages of the Talmud came. When you say came up with it, some of it is extremely early. Like the bitter herbs, for example, they were commanded about the matzah and the bitter herbs and the sacrifice, Pesach sacrifice, actually already while they were still in Egypt. Okay, the actual Pesach sacrifice, the very first Pesach sacrifice, actually took place before they left, and they were told then to eat it with the bitter herbs and the matzah. Okay, so those three elements were already there before they left Egypt. The other aspects, I suppose, came up over the years. Yes, the Paschal sacrifice. Yeah, that's a biblical commandment. That's absolutely right. Yeah. So they were commanded about the Paschal sacrifice there in Egypt, Paschal sacrifice, but they were also carried on for every generation, because that was also given to them as a command to do that. Yeah, definitely. Now, in fact, that's great that we actually got there, that you asked that question, because the next thing I want to look at is actually, yes, reflected the shank bone. Yes, I actually want to look at, yeah, we can have a beat. Yeah. Great. So we're going to look at that bit there. All right. So the next piece I want to look at is the matzah. Oh, I don't know. I thought there was a picture in there. Never mind. We don't need a picture. We know what a matzah looks like. Okay, so at the very beginnings, we're going to start the story. Again, we make an affirmation. I am ready and willing to tell the story, or to fulfill the mitzvah of telling the story of coming out of Egypt, for the sake of the unification of the Holy Blessed One and the Shekhinah in awe and in love, to unify the name Yud He and Vav He in complete unity through his hiddenness in the name of all of Israel. And this is what we actually recite. Holach Ma'anya, this is the bread of affliction which our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt. All those who are hungry, let them come and eat. All those who are needy, let them come and make the Pesach sacrifice. This year we are here, next year in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves, next year we will be free men. And again, this declaration is also said by people living in Israel. So what does it mean? This year we are here, in other words, still enslaved by our ego. Next year, we're in the land of Israel, in the land of where the soul is predominant, okay? Where Israel is the soul, where the desire of the soul takes precedence over the desire of the ego. This year, we are still slaves to the ego. Next year, we will be free men. Now, we say this every year. It comes round again every year. So what happened? The whole year, we never made any progress. It's actually, it's just like the broken record going round. But that's actually not true. Each year, we do make progress. We make progress on another aspect of the ego, all right? And each aspect of the ego, we rectify each year, and then each year we work on another aspect. We work on a different part of ourselves. Okay, so each year, yes, there's something new. Now, this bread of affliction, which our forefathers ate in the land of Egypt, this mitzvah of eating matzah, as we just mentioned with Alison, was given to the children of Israel before they left Egypt. And this is for the redemption, the future redemption. This is for the redemption which took place at that time, in haste. Okay? We find that the mitzvah of eating the matzah was actually given to them whilst they were still in servitude. But the intention of the mitzvah was for the moment of redemption. That is because they went out in haste. Okay? Now, what does all this mean? What does going out in haste mean? Well, on the eve of going out of Egypt, the children of Israel were commanded to sacrifice the lamb. Take a lamb on the 10th of Nisan, okay? And they were to tie it to the doorpost, to the post on their bed, the bedpost, and they would keep it there for 4 days, and then they were to slaughter it, and they were to put the blood on the lintel and the doorposts of the house. Okay? So what is all that about? The actual aspect is what it's about is because the Egyptians and the Israelites used the lamb as a god. They were idol worshippers. The Egyptians were idol worshippers, and unfortunately, the children of Israel had also been worshipping idols. Okay? So they had to do a move. They had to make a move. Okay? And first move they had to do was let go of the idol. And that was what the Pesach sacrifice was actually about. To slaughter the idol, to let go of, to say, I don't want to be enslaved to these idols anymore. And again, any part of ourselves now where we put as priority instead of God is basically an idol. Okay? Even ourselves, when we put our own ego as priority before God, that's idol worship. Okay? So the first thing to do is to let that go, and that's what the slaughtering of the Pesach lamb actually symbolizes. Now, it said that when they were given the rules of that Pesach, that very first Pesach, they were told they had to slaughter the lamb, and then each household had to eat the lamb on its own, okay, and or join with the neighbors, okay, and they, but they were not allowed to go out their houses, okay? It sounds a bit reminiscent of what's happening today, doesn't it? Not allowed to go out. They had to stay indoors, all right? And on the doorposts where they painted the bloods, they painted actually 2 types of blood. One was the blood of the Paschal sacrifice, and the other one was any one of them which had not circumcised themselves, Brit Milah, they actually did circumcision that night as well. Okay? Now, Brit Milah actually means the covenant, the connection with God, that they wanted to be connected with God. That was the sign of connection. So they, on the one hand, they let go of the idols, they let go of the negative, and they made that move to the positive. Okay? So what was the sign on the bit of their house for? God doesn't need any signs. He can just, he knows who's inside. He knows everything. What does he need a sign for? And again, it wasn't for God to make the sign needed to be made. It was for them to make their sign. Okay? And actually, the sign that they made was, if you think about it, 2 doorposts and the lintel across the top. It actually makes the letter Hey, which is one of the letters of the name of God. Okay? So they actually showed that they were wanting and ready to get out of Egypt. And that was the inner meaning of the Paschal lamb. And the reason, and the matzah actually symbolizes the faith, that they wanted to be connected to God in faith. Now, since they had sunk down to the 49th level of uncleanness, God couldn't wait for them to climb up all 49 levels again, all right, to take them out, because if he had left them there, they would have gone down further into the 50th level, and then it would have been impossible to unmingle them from the Egyptians. So even though they were still pretty sunk, God said, okay, you've made your first move, you've taken your first steps, that's it. And I'm going to just lift you straight out. Okay? And in the same way as we eat the matzah, just as they ate the matzah in the moment of redemption, they actually ate it while they were still enslaved, but they intended the mitzvah for the time of redemption. So also for us, when we eat the matzah today, the matzah of now, we want to do it in the same way that they ate the matzah in Egypt, okay? Because we are also still in an aspect of slavery. We are still enslaved to our own wills to receive for ourselves alone, to own aspects of our own ego, all right? So we're still enslaved, but we want to eat that matzah with the expectation, with the intention, with the expectation of redemption, okay? So as we eat the matzah, our intention with this mitzvah is to draw to us the future redemption, that it should happen b'mehera b'yameinu amen, speedily in our days, okay? Just as we ate the matzah, as our forefathers ate the matzah in Egypt, so we also, even though we're still enslaved by our ego, we're still in an economy which is very cruel in many ways. We absolutely want to eat that matzah in faith, to draw redemption to us, to ourselves, okay, that God should bring us in redemption, bring us to the future redemption, just as the people, our forefathers, ate matzah at that time, okay, and for the same reasons. All right.
Is this why we have the matzah as the last thing we're supposed to eat? Like we're supposed to have dessert, like at our meal, but then matzah is supposed to be the last taste on your tongue. Is that to remind us of the faith that we had and that we still have? Or is it talking about, oh, we're having a taste of the sacrifices that we're going to have again with the temple times coming in? What is the we should eat matzah last really saying?
Afikoman, I don't know. I mean, that's the honest answer. I don't honestly know what the afikoman is about.
Okay.
But you're right. It is to leave us with the taste of the matzah on our tongue. But we eat matzah several times. I mean, we eat matzah, first of all, when we make the blessing on the matzah, which is before the meal. That's when we really eat the matzah, is when we make that thing. But there's another point about matzah, which comes before then, and that is Rabban Gamliel. Oh, Alison's saying something. Here we go. Yes, Alison, first of all, Yetzer Hara, yes, definitely. The ego, yeah, definitely Yetzer Hara. As we eat the matzah, intention of fulfilling this mitzvah is to draw redemption to us and all of Israel. And the afikoman I learned represents the Paschal lamb. Right, maybe, yeah. I don't know.
That's
Sorry.
how I learned it as well. Growing up, I learned it's a taste not of something to remember, but of the future. We're going to have the sacrifices again, which I never really understood. But I'm sure it has other meanings as well.
What? Which we have what? Again, I didn't hear. The
afikoman. I also learned that it's to remind a reminder of the Paschal lamb and that we're going to have this in the future. But I never really understood it.
Yeah, well, I you know, for vegetarians among us, ourselves, the sacrifices are a bit of a puzzle, okay? But what we need to understand is, again, the sacrifices are not meant to be just, killing off animals. That's not what it's about at all. The sacrifice is actually a symbol of coming closer to God by sacrificing some animal aspect of myself, okay? It's not to do with lahakriv, to come closer to God, is actually to come closer by sacrificing some, what's called behemiut, the animal aspects of myself. Let's say, you've got the spiritual aspect of myself, and we've got the more earthy animal aspects of myself. Okay, now when we look and see why did they bring sacrifices, they brought them because they had done a sin, they'd done something wrong, they felt that they had become separated from God in different ways, and the person would come and would place his hands on the animal and confess what he'd done. And it was actually to let go of parts of himself, to understand he wanted to let go of some aspect of himself. And that was actually what the Korban was about. Now, in the future, it's not necessarily that the Korban would be an animal. In fact, I rather think it won't be. And the reason is because in those days, of course, most people were farmers. They were farmers. So to take something that and they knew their animals. They were little farms. They knew their animals. And imagine, your pet sheep or your pet goat or something, and you actually went and you gave it up in the temple. All right. That was something hard to do. Now, for us to go to, first of all, most people don't have much contact with animals in the first place. It would be completely meaningless for us to, get a sheep or a cow or something, or a goat and offer it up in the temple. It wouldn't mean anything to us because most of us don't have any emotional, any real connection with animals right now any longer. I would imagine to give up something, we would have to work in a different way. Okay? It would have to function differently. So I don't know what form the korbanot would take, but I absolutely don't think it's going to take the form of animal sacrifices in the third temple. I know that Rav Kook thought that it would be vegetables and plants. I don't know, but it's interesting. The temple itself is divided in different areas. Okay, you have the outer court, which is where the animal sacrifices took place, but the inner part of the temple, there weren't animal sacrifices, not at all. The inner part of the temple, it was called the Ulam, and then you have the Heichal, which is equivalent to the tent of meeting, and you had in there the bread, the showbread. You had the menorah, the candelabra, and you had the altar of incense where they burned the incense. Okay, so that was actually the main part of the sanctuary. Was actually not the sacrifices. It was actually the work inside the Heichal. And then further in than that, you had the Holy of Holies, which contained the Ark of the Covenant, okay, which had the Ten Commandments inside. And only the high priest was able to go in to the Holy of Holies, and that was on Yom Kippur. So the sacrifices were part of the work of the temple, but not the main part in many ways. They were the aspect where a person wanted to make some atonement, wanted to give something up, okay? And the daily sacrifices, again, were doing atonement for Israel. And it meant something because it was somebody's wealth, it was somebody's property, it may be an aspect that he loved. It could have been a sheep or a goat or something that he'd nursed and brought up. But this he had a personal relationship with. But since most of us now we don't even have any relationship to that type of animal any longer. I can't imagine that the korban would be with those animals. Okay, very good questions. Brilliant. Does that make sense? Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah, good. Yeah. The whole idea of the Korban is to come closer to God. There was one other bit. Yes, there was one other bit that, have you all got time or you all got to dash off? You okay? You're right. So there's one other piece which we didn't yet look at, and that is this piece here. It's only a tiny piece. This mitzvah is, it says, and the people took up their dough. This mitzvah is to get rid of the chametz. For this, the chametz, as you know, is something leavened. All right. Now, why do we need to get rid of the leaven? Okay. It's because leaven represents the ego. Leaven represents the will to receive for ourselves alone, because it tends to puff up. Okay. It's the leaven, the fermentation process is what makes the bread rise. Okay. Pride is one of the biggest aspects of the ego we have to contend with. All right. Pride, it puffs us up. Okay. So for 7 days, when the time of redemption, God tells us, get rid of your pride. Just get rid of your ego. Just put it aside just for 7 days. Okay. And this is the reason why we're told to get rid of the chametz, get rid of that pride. And this mitzvah was handed to the children of Israel also, again, whilst they were still in Egypt. And the people took up their dough before it had time to ferment. In other words, they took it up before they let their pride in. Okay? And what does that mean? It means that when they came out of Egypt, they just had to go blindly with faith. They weren't able to say, well, I think this, and what about that? And sort of, get themselves, they just had to, just go with faith, because that's what the matzah is. The matzah is very thin, doesn't have any fermentation there. It's just made out of the same ingredients, flour and water, but it doesn't rise. It's very thin, not puffed up. And you have to go with that, just go with faith, which is, it's hard. It's hard. We want to know, we want to understand, we want to figure it out. Okay. Also in coronavirus, we want to know why, we want to know what's happening. Okay. But I think, again, one of the things about the issues now is not to spend all our time looking at coronavirus. Okay, and certainly not during the 7 days of Pesach. You need to know what's happening, so we need to take care. We need to follow the directions of the health ministry, whatever country we're in. But we don't let it machmitz. We don't have to go into it. We don't have to make it ferment within us. Okay? On the contrary, in the 7 days of Pesach, we're going to go in faith, because that's the food we need to eat, the food of matzah, which is the faith which doesn't rise up and ferment. And okay, so we get rid of the chametz and we just go with the matzah, which is the bread of faith. And that's why it's written, leaven should not be found in your houses. And the companions have already explained it. And we've explained the inner meaning of the difference between chametz and matzah of coming out of Egypt. Okay, and the chametz is the yetzer hara, which is the ego, and the matzah represents the yetzer hatov, which is the good inclination. Okay, and I think that's it for today, my dears. Meir went early, but I'd sent him earlier some lovely pictures of my books. Yeah, so he was going to sort of do a little advert for me, but he's not there, so I'll have to do it for myself. Let me find, where we go.
I can maybe find it too.
There you go. Oh, I made it too big. Whoops. I don't know how to make it smaller again. Oh, there we go. How about that? This is my new book. Okay, so this is the commercial.
Commercial break. Commercial break.
Commercial break. Ta-da-da-da. This is the commercial. I do the music. Okay, so this is my new book's just come out, and I think it's coming out on Amazon in about 10 days time.
Woo!
All right, so you can pre-order it.
If you look at my screen, you'll see it.
Huh?
If you look at my screen, you'll see it.
Oh, it's on your screen. Oh, great. Oh, wonderful.
Yay.
Oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I see. There. Oh, wait a minute.
Very, very worth the read. I'm enjoying it very thoroughly.
Are you?
Yes, I am. I was gonna message you about it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Here's
I think, yeah. There's my commercial. There we go. There. Can you see that?
There.
Woo! This is the story of the life of Rabbi Ashlag, and he was this great Kabbalist. And Lauren asked a couple of times, why don't we know all this? Why don't we know all this inner meanings that we've just been talking about? It was he who brought it out. He was the one who brought it out from the hidden to the revealed. And this is, I think it's an amazing book. I didn't write the book, I translated it. Okay, it was compiled by Rabbi Avraham Mordechai Gottlieb, who actually was, as a young boy, he was in their Beit Midrash, and he actually knew many of the students of Rabbi Ashlag, and he compiled it from his biography. And I agree with Lauren. I mean, I think it's a phenomenal book. It's actually a glowing book. And it's really about a life lived in constant connection with the Creator. What does that actually feel like? What does it actually be like? And yeah, so great. Lauren says, there we go. Lauren says it's a good book. It is.
I also recommend this one. This one's excellent as well in other directions. We have it at Livnot. It's great to have it home. It's great for chavrutas.
Oh, what, tapestry?
Yeah, tapestry. I was showing him tapestry. You get Abraham's artwork in there, and Yedidah's thoughts. It's amazing.
That's great. You're my best advertiser. 1 minute. Where
you got to keep it real. This is what it's all about, you know.
Oh, wait a minute. Here I need to do. Oh, that's the one. Yeah. There. Can you see that?
Yay! It
Yeah.
looks so nice.
I lost it. There you go. Yeah, that's the one. If you want to know like basics, the ideas here, this is the best book, I think. This is the introduction to the Zohar. Again, it's by Rabbi Ashlag, and it asks these basic questions: what is my essential being? How can I know the purpose of my life? And why do I and others suffer? But how it works, it's actually a compilation of texts taken from other works of Rabbi Ashlag to deepen our understanding of this particular introduction. And the introduction itself is very, very deep. It's a very challenging work, and I think it's super. Okay, and that's actually the one I use the most for teaching. So you can get them from my website, or you can get them from Amazon. There you are. There's my website at the bottom there. Okay.
You did a nice job. It looks nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yay. Well, of course, you know, if anybody wants anything, or you want any questions or anything, I don't know if you have my email, but I can give you my email, and you can just always contact me, or contact me through Meir or Akiva at Livnot, and they've got my contact stuff, okay, or WhatsApp or something, and you know, just feel free.
Thank you.
Yay. Well, thank you.
So much.
Let's do that. There you go. Thank you too. Thank you for being. Yay. And welcome to Tzfat.
Thank you.
Yay. When did you come?
February.
Gosh, that's not long ago. Yay. That's wonderful. Are you settling in? You good?
I am settled in, Baruch Hashem. I'm here, and gonna do Pesach here in my little apartment with my goldfish. So good.
That's marvelous. What are you working? What are you doing?
I am just living day to day. I am creating a lot of art recently, so if those sell, then I'm working. Otherwise,
Oh, that's wonderful. Is that what you're doing now with your tapestry or something?
yes, I actually have a painting that I'm embroidering on top of.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Yay.
Yeah,
That's really lovely.
thanks. I'm not
That's
sure.
beautiful.
I wanted to put some sphirot in the middle. I might make it my Seder plate.
Ooh,
Wow.
I love it.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. My God.
Yay. That's beautiful.
Thank you for your teachings.
Okay. Well, you're very welcome. All right. So,
Thank you so much, Yedidah, for everything. It was wonderful.
oh, great. Who's that talking?
Akiva.
Oh, hi, Kiva. Great. Well, I'm very glad you were there, and I'm really glad to, I was very happy to do it. I just love teaching about Pesach because Lauren was right. Most people don't know any of this stuff, and it makes it so alive.
Especially if it's all about intention. We need all the Jews to know what we're intending here.
That's right. Well, there's so much about Pesach out there in the world, but I find this really speaks to me.
Yes. Thank you for doing that. Came at such a good time. Thanks for sharing your time with us. It's good to see you.
Pleasure. With pleasure, my dears. Absolutely with pleasure. Yay. That's amazing. You've done a lot.
All right, so I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Akiva.
Okay. Okay. Take care.
Happy
All right.
Pesach.
Okay, bye-bye.
Everyone. Keep in touch, you guys.
Maybe if I think oh wait, I was gonna say Yedidah might be able to keep it going. His marriage computer's on. But so good to see you, Yedidah.
Good to see you too. Lovely. You look grand, both of you. And the little Chico.
Yes.
Okay.
Have a lovely evening.
All right. Take care, loves.
You too. I love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye.